Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the March 19th, 2021 meeting for the SPARSA, crew, nonprofit, charity, etc., etc. It's been a while, so we've got some updates for you, including, but not limited to, we filed our taxes. We've got some new overlays. We've got news. Gonna debrief ISTS, which happened last week before last. I've lost track of time. Talk about some upcoming events, and then we'll get on our soapbox and complain about stuff for a while. So with me tonight, we have Kirk Pinto for a little bit before he's got to do some real world things, as well as my main man, Zachary Teach'em Techie Allen, down in the corner there. So we can start at the top. Zach, you want to walk us through some of the tax pieces?
Sure. So basically, just like everyone here who probably has a job or has worked a job, you got to file taxes if you're a business as well. So we go to the IRS. We tell them that, hey, here's our business status. We're a 501c3. You fill out something called a Form 990N. I thought it was going to be extremely complicated, but it turns out that if you don't make a lot of money as a nonprofit, it's not that bad. Because last year was our first year, there really wasn't much to report. I don't think we sold anything. I don't think there's any properties given to us, so that's really important. I know the SPARSA compound is in the roadmap for at least this year or next year. And yeah, that was basically it. So we're in good standing according to the state of Maryland and to the federal government. So we're not getting our doors kicked in just yet.
Hoorah. Hoorah. Yeah, hopefully 2021 will be bigger for us in terms of getting some funding and such. I know that in the works,
in terms of everything, hopefully.
In terms of everything, the fact that everyone made it through 2020 is truly a miracle in and of itself. But for 2021, we've got some plans. I won't spoil everything here, but we are planning on some merchandise, actually with some of the ink, whatever, some of the merchants custom ink. It actually makes it a lot more approachable for, nonprofits and even folks like at ISTS, where they can put in a custom order instead of like bulk ordering 20 or 30 of a variety of sizes and praying that everything's right. So that's actually pretty fantastic for making that a little more flexible, so we can provide merch for folks, and then you guys can buy hoodies and t-shirts and stuff with and help support the nonprofit here. So fantastic. If you are new to the stream, this is definitely the production quality that we have every single week that you can come to expect. If you are not new to the stream, you may have noticed some of the new overlays and such that we're working on here. So
beautiful.
Yeah, I put in a little bit of effort today getting it all kind of laid out. It's not quite there yet. There's a few like borders and such around chat and
we're getting close.
And the pieces there. So we'll get there. But if you have any feedback about what looks good and what doesn't look good and what might look better, please let me know. You can either let us know in chat here or feedback.sparsa.org, which is where we collect all of our feedback. It's pretty open form, so you can put in kind of whatever there. The other big piece of news that we're looking at, we're going to look to duplicate this over in podcast format. So working with Kirk to take the audio rips out of our meetings here and actually put them in podcast form so you can listen to them while you are on your daily run or monthly run, as the case may be. And for all those long commutes that none of us have currently. So I was
gonna say plane rides, but then
I did. Dude, I literally have not left my house in weeks. This is fine. Fantastic. So yeah, keep your eyes peeled. And we'll make some announcements either on the website, the mailing list, or on next month's meeting. But while you're there, if you are not followed down below there, please smash that follow button. It helps us out. I'm not sure how, but I'm sure it does. And if you're watching a VOD on YouTube or any other social media platform, smash the like and subscribe button as appropriate. Cool. With that, we will dive into the news. So start us off, Zach, with that SMS 2FA scaries.
Sure. So this specific story, Brian Krebs broke it this week, but it was research broke by this hacker named Lucky225. The basic premise of it was performing man-in-the-middle hijacking of any phone number that was part of this kind of vulnerable service. But it's one of those stories where, as the more you read it, it wasn't really vulnerable because it was designed that way. The basic premise behind it is that the phone infrastructure, much like the internet, has been built and cobbled together, and band-aids been put on it over the years. And VoIP providers wanted to kind of get into the game in terms of being able to be part of a carrier network. So there was this specific basic standard that was put out called Alt SPID. And the way it was kind of advertised was that, let's just say you're a business, you're a small business, you have your main phone line, maybe it's a cell phone, or maybe it's just something like an old school phone that you call in. And Alt SPIDs make it possible so that basically two carriers can hold the routing for that phone number at the same time, where one phone number, if it's called through like the regular phone call, it'll go to your business. And if you receive an SMS message, it'll go to the specific service. Pretty cool, not a big deal, but it gets really scary because there's a couple companies that basically said, hey, we'll take care of adding this phone number for an SMS message for you. And all you got to do is sign this something called a letter of authorization and promise us that you own that phone number. So what do a lot of people have over SMS? Two-factor authentication. So, I've done some work.
Let's not call it two-factor authentication. Let's call it two-step. Because
it's definitely two steps. Yeah.
Don't make me get on my soapbox. I swear to God.
It's terrible. So for those that aren't familiar with SIM swapping, this is an area of research that's been getting a lot of kind of spotlight in the news where, you have somebody like a threat actor, they go and they target somebody specifically, let's just say a cryptocurrency influencer, which are victims to a lot of SIM swapping. You find out who the carrier is through open source intelligence, you find their phone number, call up AT&T, for example, and say, hey, I'm so-and-so, and you social engineer the AT&T rep, and then they swap the SIM card over to something you control. So this requires a lot of effort and a lot of research. This didn't require much effort or any research at all. You just needed the phone number. And all you had to sign was a letter that said, I promise I own this number, and I swear I'm going to do good things with it. So the scary thing is I've been telling people to avoid SIM swapping, use a VoIP carrier like Google Voice. This completely lambasts Google Voice. You could definitely take over any type of VoIP carrier like that. So all of my security recommendations of the past 3 years to my clients are now basically gone because of this.
You find that your clients will still buy your advice? Are you like the security weatherman? Like you can be wrong a few times and it's all good?
Yeah, something like that.
I mean,
hell yeah.
Anyone who's listening to Zach for any advice at all in any capacity, I think probably we need to reevaluate.
They're taking a huge risk.
Big risk.
They're big risk. Big risk. Yeah. So.
Keep going.
Yeah. I mean, basically, there's a couple people on there that were quoted that have been in the SIM swapping research scene for a while and kind of track the actors behind it. And especially if you work at an organization that deals with account takeover, it's definitely a big flaw that you deal with already. So now to add something onto that's even easier than a SIM swap is probably not something you want to add to your plate to research right now.
I think something that's sort of research or not really talked about in this article is a lot of COVID growth opportunities are sign up with phone number. Mm-hmm. And in a lot of countries without good infrastructure, say like your Brazils, etc. of the world, they really heavily rely on technologies like this. So a holistic solve seems super far away, as far as I think.
If you go and check out the article and you just Google, I think lucky225.medium.com, he talks about Barbados having two main mobile providers, and you could just take over any phone number in Barbados. And he's like, this is just one of many countries.
Right.
Yeah, for folks in some of the, you know, second world and third world, India is actually a really good example. Back when I was doing some work with DigitalOcean, one of the problems that we had mandating 2FA everywhere for accounts was, or any like a mobile app like an Authy or something as a second factor is, they didn't have that. So for a lot of their folks, they have a flip phone from like, you know, 1997, and they get text messages. And so everything there is that like that two-step, you know, validation with SMS and MMS. And there's not this smartphone saturation that we have in like in the Europes of the world and in the US's and Canada's of the world. And so it's a real problem. Like, you know, it's not necessarily targeted at us, but I mean, there's 1.3 billion people in India that are potentially like, you know, high risk for an attack like this. So it's concerning.
Yeah, I think that's a really, really good word to put for that. So yeah, it's go and check it out. The guy who did the research, he did plug his company that helps protect this. And you know, they have a beta, and basically you put in your phone number and it connects to the same damn networks and APIs that all these other like really shady people connect to, and basically just constantly pulls it and is like, hey,
is this like have I been pwned, but like have I been swapped? Like,
it's exactly right. So I signed up for it, but the funny thing is if it goes to my email and then I lose access to my email, but I don't have two-factor on my email anymore. I use a Titan. So everything else still like definitely vulnerable.
I love it. Cool. All right, next. There is a pretty interesting someone deleted it. Where'd I go? Oh, no, there it goes. So actually someone released this hash, what do they call it? Search that hash. It's a cool GitHub project that got posted on NetSec recently. And so you basically Python pip install this, and you can put in a hash and it will go search a bunch of the open source hash APIs to see if it's there. I know certainly when I'm doing like CTFs or any red team things, if I try to grab hashes, I like desperately Google around to remember which APIs exist for that. So this would actually be pretty neat. And it looks like if the hash isn't found, it'll automatically dump it into a Hashcat instance for you. So, you know, if it's not found, it'll automatically start cracking it for you. So kind of cool. Looks, it's Python project. It was released like last month, I guess, was the first release of it, and there's been a lot of updates since then. So yeah, check it out. It's cool. I'm gonna slap the star button, and we're gonna fork it because my repository is full of forks of things I've never touched, as is tradition. Fire Hazard had a question. Do you think apps as a backup is better? That might be for you, Zach.
Yeah, if this is referring to like Google Authenticator and Duo and stuff like that, then absolutely yes, because then it's tied to your phone, like what you have, but what you have physically, as opposed to a phone number, which is still what you have, but really you don't actually have it or own it.
Like kind of what you've been delegated, really.
Exactly. Yeah. And then, you know, physical security key when you can. I don't know if I can recommend VoIP stuff anymore. So
I mean, I honestly wouldn't. I know that carrying around like a YubiKey or something like a FIPS2 compliant security token is kind of a pain in the ass, but like it no one can steal that. I mean, they can physically mug you, and that's a thing that sucks, but like someone across the world is not going to replicate your you know, random YubiKey garbage that you accidentally post in your IRC channel constantly. Not that I've ever had that happen or done that.
Oh no.
So in terms of that, I mean, a physical token is probably going to be the best. For things that don't support UE2F or I don't remember the protocol. Some jumble of those letters.
Basically WebAuthn at this pace.
Yeah, for things that don't support that, you know, there's two-factor authentication.org, I think, will go through and tell you all of the sites that support two-factor and how to enable it, which is honestly, you don't think that would be necessary, but given how deep and dark some of those settings menus are to find things, it's a little exciting sometimes. And then for apps like 1Password, which I love and I use, I just find the UI much better than bye Kirk. I find the UI much better than something like LastPass, which breaks for me a lot. 1Password has their Watchtower product, which will let you know if there's either a compromise, because I think they are synced with Have I Been Pwned, as well as if you're duplicating passwords, which is bad, don't do that. And then if it can store your second factor token in there. It can either do like a screenshot of a QR code where they are basically, most places are like, if your camera can't read this, here's the actual code. And you can import those. So I really like that. I've got a really strong password in front of my 1Password. And so, I mean, but if someone cracks my 1Password, like I am like uber screwed. So I
I like OnePass. You could do you put it on Dropbox or Box at all, Rusty?
So I actually used to put it on, this is a fun story. I used to put it on Dropbox and I used to sync it between all my devices, and that worked out well. I had originally done KeepPass for that, and then KeepPass being an open source product, certainly ran into its interesting limitations or challenges that were kind of a pain. It didn't have quite the feature set. So I actually moved to LastPassword for a while, years ago, and then I moved over to 1Password and ended up paying the one-time fee for that. Lately I have it on I actually moved it over to the cloud provider, just so when I was working at Riot, we didn't allow people to have Dropbox in their machines because it's a very beautiful source of data exfiltration, especially if people accidentally post art assets or other things into their Dropbox and then it's gone forever. From the scope of the company. But I had Dropbox installed on my work computer, literally syncing my 1Password folder. That was the only thing it was syncing. And then they restricted the number of clients you could have to 3. So I had like my work laptop, my personal laptop, and my desktop, and my phone. So I had to shoot one of those.
One to basically
and like that sucked. And then I had one of the other guys on the team come to me. It's like, listen, your laptop shows up every day in this this Dropbox report that we have of people who have Dropbox installed. And I was like, all right, fine. So I ponied up and I paid for the 1Password cloud, which like spooks me out a little that it's cloud hosted, but they're pretty transparent in terms of what they're working on and some of the technology behind the scenes. And like, at some point, I love 1Password. I think they're doing well. Yeah. I'm terrified if a compromise happens. I mean, similar to LastPass a few years ago, a few might be like 5 when they had perfect forward secrecy for most of their things. So it actually worked out okay. LastPass has really like cramped down on the free accounts. I think you can only have it. You can't have it on mobile if you have a free account, which is like super shitty. And I'm kind of upset that all these companies are like really trying to monetize. I understand it's a product and all that jazz, but like, I assure you have enough enterprise customers. The fact that you're trying to nickel and dime the free people like feels super bad. Fractal. I did look at Bitwarden. There was a couple of the other self-hosted ones I had looked at. Part of the challenge I faced with a few of those was the cross-platform pieces. So like a lot of these open source projects don't have iPhone apps because getting an app in the App Store is kind of a pain in the ass. That was certainly a challenge. Don't get me wrong, I'm like a huge proponent of the open source community. I have like a gajillion open source projects running. And so yeah, that was definitely a concern or a thing that I looked into, but it ended up just like not quite fitting what I need. I don't blame you for moving out of LastPass. Aiden says 1 device type at a time. I assume that's like mobile, desktop, etc., and you can only switch a max of 3 times. God, that's awful. And fire
is super tough.
Yeah, fire hazard. I was pretty into LastPass. I had a ton of passwords in there, but you can actually export it super easily. and the other password providers are very verbose in how to import LastPass things into, including like 2FA tokens. So that's that's something to consider. I guess if you want to get the hell out of LastPass, because I think LogMeIn owns them now, right? Over the last couple of years, they bought them a few years ago.
I think so. I switched from LastPass after I think you were telling me I need to switch over to 1Password about a year ago.
Probably.
Like, you were shaming me. I was feeling pretty bad, and then as soon as I started using it, I was just like, all right, this is pretty good. But
it's just
when
better.
Travis or Mandy like just live tweets CVEs about LastPass, you're like, oh, I feel so bad for you, but I'm out. Like,
get me off Mr. Bones' wild ride here. True, big true. Zach, do you want to talk about the UNKN?
Yes. All right. So UNKN, or Unknown, he's the owner operator of the REvil or Sodino Kibi ransomware group. So for those that are probably in the business and they hear ransomware, they probably shiver, shudder, like get really, really small for a second because they've probably dealt with some type of incident related to it. But for those that aren't familiar with this, or maybe they're in college and they're about to join the security workforce, ransomware operators are at the level now that are as sophisticated as some APT, some nation state backed stuff. And there are some arguments to support that the ransomware operators probably have some nation state backing too, because they seem to be operating without any type of law enforcement kind of going after them as much as that they should. But these are criminal gangs, so they're oligarchs, kind of like blue collar, white collar, like criminals rather, and they run a whole gang of ransomware operators and ransomware type of operations. So when you think about that, you can think about like a CEO, you can think about a finance person, you can think about a DevOps person, you can think about a project manager operating Jira. These ransomware operators and these gangs have all of those things. And it's been really interesting because they've been interviewing more within the last year or two. So there was a really good interview with a REvil same gang about a year ago when it was on YouTube. And he was just kind of talking about how much money he was making. It's like tens of millions of dollars. And this just came out this week. Unknown, who's the owner, kind of gang leader, so to speak, of REvil, gave an interview to The Record. He claims to have made $100 million. He claims to have made deposits into kind of like these ransomware gang and cybercrime forums of like millions of dollars at a time. These people, they drive McLarens. They have like crazy sports cars, amazing vacations. And we know this because some of them have taken vacations to places where they can get shipped out to the US if they get arrested. But go ahead and check it out. It's just a really interesting peek into how someone goes from being like, I don't know, when you think of a hacker, maybe you can think of somebody that does like petty carding and stuff like that. Maybe they rise through the ranks to carding. These people have basically figured out cybercrime. They'll get into a box, they'll pivot through that box of a network, and then they'll own the whole network. They'll ransomware the whole network, but before they do it, they'll extract a ton of intellectual property out. So they ransomware the company, then they hold that intellectual property hostage. It's called double extortion. So when you get ransomware, you'll get dropped a note. You go and you reach out to some onion address, which is the chat room with somebody that works for the gang, and you'll start negotiating a price to unlock everything. And if you don't negotiate with them, or if you try to lowball them, and he talks about this, they start releasing your intellectual property. And they have these shame sites that anybody in the world can go to, and you can download just so much different things from these different victims and stuff like that. They even have a program where they recruit people to call their victims, lawyers, law firms, and customers associated with their victims to say like, hey, by the way, the reason it's not working right now is because they're ransomware. You need to tell them and pressure them to talk to us so you can negotiate.
Please check C:\Windows:\ransom note.txt.
Yeah, absolutely. Instead of sliding into DMs, they just slide into your Active Directory, like everything, and just
attributes
drop notes everywhere. Yeah,
couple questions in chat here. Brandon is asking how much PTO time they get off each year. Probably unlimited would be my guess. It seems to be kind of the standard thing here. Brad asked how much the ransomware industry is worth in total. So I just actually pulled this up. There were 200 million ransomware attacks last year in 2020, and it is projected to be $20 billion of damage this year, up from 11 billion in 2019. So in 2 years, it's nearly doubled in terms of damages. So it's an incredibly lucrative industry. And honestly, if all of the non-extradition countries weren't so bad, like I definitely would be in a life of crime. Like clip that, because
just go ahead, clip it, ship it, let's repost it.
If America just wasn't the best country in the world, I would definitely be in Eastern Europe, like working for Vlad, selling the cyber crimes.
Yeah, it's interesting you say Eastern Europe, because he literally talks about, like, the person who interviewed him was like, so you do not target CIS countries, and a CIS country can be Georgia, Ukraine,
anything that used to be the USSR,
really
like
yeah, definitely Russia. They'll drop in, and you'll see some of the ransomware kind of reverse engineering reports. Well, they have a check for local language, like locales of the computer and things like that.
There were some interesting pieces of malware over the last decade or so that did some of those language fact checks. So they would check if they were on like a computer that had Mandarin installed, or they checked if they had Russian installed. I'm sure everyone in the chat can take a couple guesses who would have written ransomware like that or malware like that, but it was the Australians. It's fine. Cool. So another piece here for everyone that interacts with AWS IAMs in any sort of way. Netflix just released a new project called Console Me. And I say released a new project. They've been working on it for a number of months, but it's kind of come to the top here recently, at least in folks that I know who've been playing with it. So self-described, it's a web service that makes credential management easier for end users and cloud administrators to help them better kind of understand what IAM policies are and do. For everyone who's worked in a cloud native environment with anything IAM related, I'm sure you understand how convoluted some of the IAMs are, and you need a web of access to give access to like a list of bucket resource or something. So this is kind of cool. My only concern, and I'll poop on Netflix for a moment here. My only concern with this is their love for creating new, cool, interesting projects, releasing them on GitHub, and then EOLing them 6 months later.
Yep.
I haven't been bit in the ass with that like 3 times before. I promise. Definitely not Lemur, their certificate management program.
I remember Scumbler. Oh my gosh,
dude,
Scumbler last updated 2 years ago.
See, that to me is like a really unfortunate piece of that, and that's actually an issue that Riot had when they released Cloud Inquisitor, which was kind of an interrogation platform for a lot of the roles and access and some other pieces there. As we scaled out into the number of accounts, it became untenable for that to really like scale and sustain. So they ended up EOLing that as well. And like the process to get something open sourced at a company like Riot, and I'm sure some other big companies, is like, I mean, you're moving the boulder up the hill. And so, watching that get released and then get EOL'd like soon after, like feels super, super bad. So
yeah, I loved Scumbler. I don't know if you use Sketchy at all, where you could scrape a website and then take a screenshot of it. Like, it was just really cool ideas. And Jared had done some projects during COVID, and he gave a talk about this a few months ago. I'll try to find it and drop it into I don't know, some sort of social medium here. But he gave a talk basically going through all of the new domain registrations that were anything related to COVID, and he was actually taking screenshots of it. So he kind of reinvented Scumbler or Sketchy in that regard. Yep. But like, it's just frustrating that you have these really great projects and like really great ideas that end up getting EOL'd. Eyewitness. Oh, I remember Eyewitness.
Yeah, so Console.me is interesting. I'll probably take a look at that here soon. I mean, they did a whole reInvent talk and stuff on it, so yeah, we'll take a peek there. One other interesting one for everyone who uses Brave browser, like myself. There was actually an issue a month or so ago where if you were leveraging the Tor portion of the Brave browser, they were actually leaking service requests through DNS. It ended up getting patched it ended up getting patched pretty quickly, but kind of a bad look. When you're trying to go privacy native there and going through the Tor browser they have built in, because it's just in the top bit there. When you open a new window, you can say open a new Tor window, which is pretty slick. It makes it a lot nicer than needing to install like Tails or anything else. But the constant fight between privacy and unmasking continues. I mean, the FBI a number of years ago unmasked a bunch of people on Tor. Well, they said they did, and then a few of the cases got dropped because they didn't want to have to put it in evidence. Yeah. So they actually let a few people go to keep their TTPs in one piece. Although I'm not entirely convinced that there wasn't a 3-letter agency that actually did that, and the FBI invented a backwards path to like what would be plausible for that. Like, oh yeah, we made this like website service that tried to request random things for you and it leaked out your stuff. Or Shadow Broker's toolkit before it got dumped was leveraged in this in some capacity. So who knows?
Funny enough, when I click that link that you put in the doc for Brave browser, I get a cert error and then a 404. So
it's a website, ramble.pw. So you click with care, I guess. Cool. I'll take one more here and then we'll jump over to the Tilly Cotman stuff. There was another write-up recently, bitsquattingwindows.com. And for everyone who doesn't know what bitsquatting is, instead of sometimes computers do dumb things and they'll flip a bit. So instead of like windows.com, it'll be like windpws.com. And it'll just flip one bit there. So you have a pretty big key range of possible domains that you could acquire. And actually, so this was an interesting write-up, but I had interviewed Allison Nixon at Palantir, God, 7 years ago at this point. And she was doing exactly this. Our whole interview was us just like shooting the shit about some of the bit squatting stuff she was doing. And like, I mean, you're talking time.windows, you're talking update.windows. Like, so if you can register any of the, those bit squatted domains and then serve a malicious service in some point, like you could do some pretty damaging things, especially with something like Windows Update. So that's interesting. So this was a new blog post that someone had posted. So I just wanted to shout out Allison, because I had seen that like literally years before of her doing that research, and I hope I didn't totally spoil that for her. But I figure 7 years is a reasonable statute of limitations.
I think it's true. I remember seeing a bit squatting presentation at a conference. I feel like it was 2 years ago, and someone was just doing that kind of something similar with Windows, and they're just throwing responder at like everything that kind of checked into them. So
yeah, and this interesting. Yeah, this one's kind of interesting because they went through, and for the NTP piece, this guy captured 200,000 unique clients, 200,000 connections from 626 unique clients. So that means 600 people computer is screwed up enough it's bit flipping Windows in some capacity. So yeah, I mean, like, client.wns for the Windows push notification services. You've got SkyDrive, which is the one login domain. You've got time.windows. So if you want to screw with someone's clock, you can do that.
I feel like you could do something like this with, I know there's been news lately about package names that are like like the different characters have changed.
Oh, interesting.
I don't know if you've seen the supply chain stuff. I wonder if you can do bit squatting with package names in like pip, for example.
I mean, that would certainly be interesting. Oh, I mean, yeah, if you go like get pip or the npm repo and try to bit flip those as well?
Requests, just bit flip requests and
Yeah.
see what happens.
Oh my God, dude, you ruined the world. It's
Boom,
going to be a
left
left
on
pad
top.
situation, left
Let's
pad
go.
situation all over again. Yeah, this isn't in here, and I think we talked about it a little bit last month, but the supply chain stuff like still continues on, and it's still shocking to me how little awareness a lot of people have of the number of dependencies. I mean, you install like a default node project and you have like 300 megs of just dependencies when you install it, which is A, absurd, and B, like terrifying. So yeah, it's all fine then. It's all fine.
Node is the worst. Python's
Python's not a lot better.
Yeah,
it's not a lot better. You just can't be the fattest guy out running the bear, you know? Like
you can't.
All right, you want to take us to Tilly Cotman?
Yeah, sure. So for those that don't know Tilly Cotman, Tilly is, I guess, a security researcher, hacktivist. I know Tilly because they've constantly leaked a lot of like proprietary and confidential type of documents and source code and things like that through a Telegram channel for like the past, I think, year and a half. So there's always a good source of like intelligence if somebody got owned. You can quickly see through a Telegram channel where they published it. They ran their own GitLab instance, definitely had a Twitter presence. They were in the news recently, and this was a few weeks ago, where there was a security camera company that got hacked into, and this person had access to all these feeds, to all these
Verkada, you can call them out. Verkada got owned. You know the worst part is their CISO started 5 days before that. Kyle, I can't remember Kyle's last name, but like 5 days, and then you just walk into this bomb.
Yeah. So there's an indictment. I guess Tilly got arrested in Switzerland, and there's an indictment that the Justice Department put out today. Looks like Rusty just put it in the chat. Very small in terms of like, hey, here's what we're doing. I mean, you can definitely click the PDF and read through everything, but I'm kind of surprised it took this long. But Tilly was definitely very confident in a lot of the kind of escapades they participated in. So.
Oh, this is the GitRip, thing.
This is GitRip.
So for folks who aren't familiar with GitRip, it was like the Pirate Bay of if a project got taken off of another hosting provider, for pick a reason. I think YouTube DL ended up on this. And I mean, that was like the most benign of the things. It certainly. But like a lot of other really databases, leaks, proprietary stuff. I just opened the indictment and scrolled down a little bit. I saw GitRip and I was like, it just clicked for me. I just got it.
I like, if I just search GitRip right here, it's just like Daimler internal source code leaked. A bunch of stuff was all hosted on GitRip, and I think it got seized. It did.
It got the banner.
It got the banner.
Brad in chat says F in the chat for YouTube DL. No F's in the chat. YouTube DL's back. Microsoft / GitHub decided that after someone slight tangent. So it got restored, and they just changed the example to be something open source as opposed to like, I think the example was like some music video that was, the RIAA copyrighted, because they've been on the recording industry has been on a tear DMCAing the world for all of like the Twitch subscribers and stuff, or Twitch streamers and such, which is hilarious, by the way, because fuck the RIAA. Yeah. But
the planet.
So Git as a protocol is very powerful, and you can abuse it in pretty spectacular ways. Someone took the entire commit history of YouTube DL and shoved it into a commit for I think the public Git changelog, or like the GitHub changelog. So forever it's in the Git history because you can't delete that. That's immutable at that point. So like YouTube DL, like they may have taken down
a shit out of that too. Right?
Oh, there was like 10,000. Yeah, there was the PRs. There was like 10,000 new forks and clones that were spun up, and so I think Microsoft realized like, okay, well, fuck the RIA. Like, we're just going to take this on the chin because people are like uber pissed about this.
That's awesome.
Which is interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's in the chat for Tilly Cotman.
Yeah. The Tilly thing's really interesting. So it looks like as far back as July is where they're going through pieces of this. July of 2020, soliciting confidential information. Yeah, that is like nothing in the great cogwheel of the Justice Department. We put someone away at Riot or assisted in the feds getting someone. And I mean, this was like 6 years after the fact. The FBI agents who were working on that, as they told me, they say the wheels of justice turn slowly, but they are ever moving, which is like a pretty big flex. So I appreciated that.
Yeah, it's interesting because I've seen Tilly post on the Twitter account that they run that they don't hack the things; they're given to Tilly.
This is like the Julian Assange defense, right? Or the Glenn Greenwald defense. Right. You're like, like Snowden may have been a shithead and released a bunch of classified information. I just published it. It was like, I didn't do anything wrong. It's like, well, you did. I mean, whatever. I don't want to get in the debate about publishers and Snowden.
Yeah, the only thing I'll add, and then we can definitely table it here, is that I could see Julian Assange being like, I'm a reporter, where Tilly was just like, fuck everything, hack the planet, like check this shit out, like clone my GitHub right here.
There was certainly a morality that may have been missing in there somewhere.
Yep.
Cool. Yep. We got two more pieces of news here. One is there was this pre-auth RCE in VMware vCenter. So for everyone who didn't see that, it was basically an unauthenticated RCE. It took VMware like 6 months to release a patch for it for just a straight like 10 CVSS RCE, which is absurd. I think the researcher that released this ended up, I mean, props to him, because I think he ended up waiting until it was actually patched before he dropped it. But like 6 months for them not to do something, I probably would have just like fuck it, YOLO'd and dropped it. But I don't know if he was under like NDA or in their bug bounty or something. So
yeah, I'm trying to see if it can fit in a tweet, because I think this is one of those web RCEs that fit in a tweet, and that's not looking good.
That's amazing.
It's not looking good.
So for everyone who's competing at any CTF or CCDC competition over the next couple months, if they're using ESX, double check if they patched it.
Yep.
And then the last piece here, this is actually a cool GitHub gist, I guess. I guess it's a website technically. Secure this shit.github.io. And it's the most common on-prem vulns and misconfigurations. And it just walks through some priv-esque and lateral movement techniques that they've been successful with, and different tactics and sort of how to prevent and protect against them, which I thought was super useful. I really enjoy this broad document in terms of here's all the different techniques we have, and this is how you mitigate against each of them, or some amount of mitigations against all of them. If you're competing in CCDC, please turn this off and delete the last 30 seconds from your brain.
I love blog posts like this because it's written in a way where the person's like, here's what's worked for me, and then they just kind of throw everything out there, and then you could pick apart like one or two things from there that you can go and bring back.
Yeah, I literally just did a Control F for Bloodhound to see if that existed there, and it's in there. So they go and do some Sharphound things to go dump local groups and such for GPO local groups, and throw it into Bloodhound to do that. I'm not really good at Windows exploitation, certainly. So this is always interesting for me to sort of learn the different ways to abuse Windows. Check if they patched it. No way they'd patch it for CCDC. Well, right. But the next day when you've been kicked out of a bunch of stuff, to see if they still haven't patched it, which most places haven't.
I mean, we've gone through full CCDC and ISTS events and other events.
Yeah, with default creds.
And blue teams haven't updated to just apt-get update. Or just default creds and stuff like that. So you'd be surprised.
It
get your run books for blue team, super important.
Yeah, run update first. But be careful about your firewall rules before you blow things up. Cool. Next on the docket here, we're going to do a quick just sort of ISTS debrief. For those who are not familiar what the ISTS is the Information Security Talent Search. It is hosted by the RITSEC students at the Rochester Institute of Technology. RITSEC being the former, or the now moniker of the beautiful former name of SPARSA, before we stole it away from them.
Hell yeah.
So ISTS is actually really fun. Super fun event. It's completely put on by students, active students at RIT. So there's certainly a lot of passion and excitement that goes into it. And we've been doing this event for, God, probably 12 or 13 years now. And every year it seems to get better. I know we got boomer eyes over here. Every year though, I will say it gets better. And so this year, there was an extra wrinkle of everything being virtual. It turns out last year we had ISTS like 2 weeks before the fucking world ended. So we all got to be in Rochester and freeze our ass off and have some fun and have a good time. But this year was all online, and honest to God, it was so smooth. It was awesome. The VPN worked. All of our jump boxes worked. Everything was great. They had a samurais versus ninjas scenario where the red team was we were the ninjas. We were the ninjas, and they were the samurais. There was this whole scenario about the samurais were all trying to group together to overthrow the like King Don boss samurai. And I don't know Japanese, so I don't remember what his name was. But honest to God, this was like so well put together. I was very impressed, especially with the added wrinkle of putting that shit totally virtual. So you had teams in California who woke their ass up at 6 a.m. To compete, and then you had, I think UCF was there from Florida, and you had I think UMBC was
national at this point.
Yeah, so I mean it's always been kind of northeastern, and I think like University of Michigan always showed up, and then UCF kind of got in the mix there, but now it's all over. And they actually, the reason that they ended up having it at 6 a.m. Pacific and 9 Eastern, because they thought they were going to get a team from the UK. Or Europe. Okay. Someone correct me in the chat if I think it was the UK. It was Europe somewhere, which is like, first of all, if you worked at a real company and you've had a California team and a European team, you understand how much of a pain in the ass it is to get an overlap, especially for like an all day event. So it sort of sucks for everybody. So yeah, Fire Hazard said almost had a UK team this year, which is seriously fantastic to hear. Like, this going international is amazing. Brandon in there, using Discord is a great idea. So that was super fun. There was an opportunity for everyone who hasn't competed in ISTS or doesn't know anything about it. More often than not, the red team has a little bit of fun, and we'll ransom people's accounts and make them earn them back with like dumb shit, like they have to do sit-ups, or we get all of the teams to nominate one person to do wall sits, and the person who does the wall sit the longest gets like, we'll give them access to a box or something. So
singing a song too.
Sing a song. A lot of karaoke happens. So it's a super fun event. And having everyone on Discord in a single place during the event, well, it wasn't quite the same, but at least we were sort of trending the right direction. So that was fun. And the red team was able to jump in different team channels and talk to them and help them out, give them a pep talk when they needed to, if they're having a bad time. It also included a CTF, which the red team obviously won. The CTF was pretty fun. I think my only feedback that I gave was I wish there was a couple more questions on there, because we burned through it pretty quickly.
We got through it we got through 90% of them the first day.
Yeah, they got through.
I think it was like one.
There was one or two questions that we were having some wrinkles on, but I think that was like the only thing that I could like really have any critical feedback was like, I wish there was more CTF stuff. I think I said I wish the King of the Hill was a little bit bigger. So there's a King of the Hill component where you could put your flag, and you had to pop a box in order to put your flag in like an HTML response or like an FTP server. And we had a good time with that. So I think if there's a few more boxes and a few more, you are too smart. Well, that certainly was not directed towards me, but other people on the team definitely. But yeah, a bigger King of the Hill would be awesome. I know that the students put everything into Ansible and I think Terraform. No, I think it's just Ansible. So what I love about that, and especially these days with the amount of technology available to everyone, is now next year you don't have to reinvent the wheel. And that was certainly a struggle we had when we were in college, was there wasn't all of those technologies to help automate these pieces. So now you can define what all this looks like. Yeah, Terraform and Ansible. Neon's Bandit says
that's the way to go. Yeah, like I think Chef was like just coming out as you and I were graduating. Like there's still like
there
this
was
weird
Puppet
new thing. Puppet was also just coming out and
which was
becoming
shit.
a thing.
Yeah,
It still is.
Yeah, I'd say the other piece. I mean, of course you end up rewriting it for next year. It's what you do. It's as is tradition. As Brandon says, wish the blue teams were encouraged to attack a little bit more. And we ended up chatting about this a little bit because this is actually a true purple competition where the students are allowed to and encouraged to attack each other. The challenge that's existed in the past is, unfortunately, people love to burn boxes right away. And so often the red team will get blamed, but more often than not, we're not to blame. Students have either shot themselves in the foot or another team has gotten access, and like, especially if they get like vSphere creds or something and they just like delete all their VMs, restoring that is like prohibitive to do, which feels super bad. So this year they gave everyone
there's some gamifying of it. Like people just like want to min-max all their points and stuff like that.
You
and
just
like, I can
just torch
fun, or I could just torch it and then increase my chances.
Yeah. So this year they gave every team a unique password, but unfortunately it meant that the teams weren't attacking each other out the gate, which I mean, it's a hard balance to find. I think that's a good data point now because that's never been done before in terms of a unique password for every team. So I think now there's an understanding of what that looks like and sort of what the ramifications are with it's far less purple. So maybe there's an opportunity for red team to come in and release credentials. We ended up doing a paste bin dump of all of the default creds for all the teams on day 2. And so, hopefully people were able to abuse those a little bit, but I'm honestly not sure how much that was.
To be honest, like I agree with you that it was super well run this year, and maybe part of that was because people weren't burning each other's boxes, so our access just kind of lasted a lot longer. But yeah, it was really hard to find feedback of things to improve this year. Like it may be there is a little bit of recency bias associated with it, but every single year since I've been doing it, it's just been better and better and better, smoother and smoother. And to kind of see a group of students get together during a pandemic and just kind of hash this all out with no in-person kind of infrastructure, all in the cloud, like that is where, and we could definitely talk about this more too in terms of practical experience. Like, does a competition provide that real practical experience for you, like going into the real world, so to speak?
Oh, absolutely.
I think, I expect that if you're part of a white team or a black team, like you better, if you get that on your resume, you volunteer, get that on your resume, make that like top of the top, because like that was enterprise level stuff there. Like Rusty said, the VPN never went down. Super easy to configure. Everything we were pivoting through was great. The web app had like a few problems, but for a web app that was just built within the last few months, it was incrable.
Well, you also had
feudal Japan with like kind of risk elements to it where people are taking over like places and you're buying armies. It was amazing.
Well, you also had a literal professional web app pen tester from NCC Group beating the shit out of this web app, and like there was a few bugs, and they ended up patching them on the fly because Jason was playing around with this, and like things would not work the next round, which was like 30 minutes later, and then they're like, oh yeah, by the way, we patched that because it was busted. It's like okay, well, like we're impressed. Brad says built in 1.5 weeks.
Well, there you go.
Yes. And he also had, 2 days. That's all he did. That's all Jason did was just beat the absolute crap out of this web app. So it was surprisingly durable. considering all that, and built by a freshman that week in a week and a half.
Easy.
that's that's impressive.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
No, that was super fun. I mean, that was the super fun part of the competition. I love that every year, and this harkens back to like the first ISTSs. That makes sense. The first ISTSs where there was always like some fun thing. There was the Bank of Sparsa one year with the ATM, and the red team, we ended up putting up a sign, so you had to transfer money into an account to pay your power bill for your cloud, and if you didn't pay your power bill that hour, it would shut your cloud down. They would just like off all of your VMs. And so we walked out there with a piece of paper and changed the account numbers and just wrote like white team or, the whatever, and just put the red team account. And we just watched all the money just start pouring in. And then the students were like, wait, why did our cloud turn off? And the white team was just laughing their ass off because I walked through the entire fishbowl to hang the sign up in a bright red shirt. And the students were like, so busy that nobody noticed. It was amazing. So the theming was awesome. I know Dan wanted the cyberpunk feudal Japan situation. So
amazing. Yeah
it was
so good,
fantastic. So I'm excited for next year.
Yeah, next year is going to be great. Last year I really liked a lot too. Basically red team actually was the good guys and everybody else were the bad guys, and we played the FBI. And there's this really cool like part of the scenario where you can only access some of your infrastructure by swiping into like a closed environment, and only one person could be at a terminal at a time. And so we had our card readers and writers out, and we were like stealing cards from people. We were socially engineering our ways into that room. It was just,
well, you forgot,
every year it gets better and better.
You forgot the most important part where Mubix had ordered so many FBI shirts off Amazon. He actually got a call from someone asking what the fuck he was doing. And he went back and forth a little bit and tried to explain what we were doing and what the competition was, and the FBI, if anyone's ever interacted with them, both on either side of the table, honestly, have negative sense of humor, certainly. And one of the field agents from the Buffalo field office ended up coming out for the day. I think it was Saturday. And she was actually,
she loved it.
Super chill. She was awesome. And I think she talked to a bunch of the students, and when she first showed up, because she came a little bit into the competition, and there was a phone sitting on the table that the students could call the FBI with or call someone with, and the phone ended up ringing, and I picked it up, and she's standing like just out of my periphery, and I'm like, Special Agent Johnson, how can I help you? And I was like, I'm either getting arrested right now or she's gonna laugh. And she just like looked at me and just started cracking up. So I finished the conversation, and she's like, well, clearly, because I was in a suit for the weekend, because I had to look the part. And she's like, well, you should start answering as supervisory special agent, because that's the special agent that's in charge of the entire task force, whatever this is. And I was like, that is genius. And then we started interrogating someone.
The interrogation thing was the scary thing, because she turned something on there that like was not, that made me very uncomfortable.
but you got to rewind there, because we're sitting in the red team room, and we're like, oh, we're gonna go interrogate this student. So someone walked into their data center, and then they had to walk out this one door on the other side, and so we're all standing there like in a half circle as the red team, or sorry, the FBI, ready to interrogate these guys. And we were talking about this in the red team room before, and we asked her like, oh, do you want to go interrogate them? And she's like, oh, I can't, because like I'm on duty, and like it would be totally reasonable, like separation of church and state. And then I started interrogating him, and I like read him his Miranda rights, and she's like, oh, you missed this piece. And then she just started interrogating him, and like it was I think it was one of the kids from UCF, and like you could see his face just dropped, because he knows who I am. He knows who I am, and he didn't know who she was, and it was it was terrifying, and I was glad I was on the side
You
because
can tell who had training and interrogation from that conversation. Like, there's us just kind of joking around and stuff, and then when she kind of started asking questions, everyone just kind of got a little bit uncomfortable because she was really
like a little like clear the throat a little bit, like and then they were like, no, dude, it's all good, we're cool, like get the fuck out of here. But that was super fun. So sometimes you just buy enough shirts with FBI written on the back that they will ask questions.
Yeah. How to get called by the FBI, right?
Like we should write a book. Cool.
So you got CCDC coming up. You got Mid-Atlantic. I'm not doing it this year, but a few weeks from now, Rusty. So I know traditionally those who have done ISTS, they kind of use it as like a little bit of practice to get through some run books and stuff like that for when they do CCDC, whether it's Mid-Atlantic or Northeast. Mid-Atlantic, red team's the best, by the way. But
true.
Anyone who's doing CCDC, I know there's a huge difference in professionalism, obviously, from that and ISTS. But if you could give 2 or 3 pieces of advice for a blue team to kind of go into, because you were also on the blue team.
Yeah. So
when we were in college.
Yeah, we went to nationals. We went to nationals as a blue team, and then I started red teaming for Mid-Atlantic. God, I think it's been like 7 years. To the point where I'm one of the core folks, and I've been to nationals for the last three or 4 years, red teaming there as well. So I will say the biggest thing is, like, you're going to get beat up that weekend, but the biggest thing is to remember at the end of the day, it's a game. And there, I say this specifically because Shields and I were red teaming a team at nationals last year. And more often than not, we do a debrief at the end. We walk through with each team about what they did, what they could have done better. We don't necessarily drop all the TTPs and stuff of what we've done, although some of the students have started to figure them out, which is a little annoying because we have to then go back to the drawing board and figure new things out. Not all of them, but yeah, there's a few. So Shields and I were on this team, and for those who don't know how nationals work, there is usually one Windows and one Linux person focused per team, and your only goal is that team, versus some of the other competitions like regionals. The red team may focus like kind of equally across all of the teams, especially during qualifiers when there's like a billion teams. But the team that we were focused on was I think it was their first year there at nationals. So they had won a region and they were in nationals, but they weren't doing well, and then things started unraveling. And so we were keylogging them on the Windows machine, and like one of the passwords they put in, because they knew we were there, it was like a racial slur. Like super bad luck. I mean, it was it actually got so bad. So Dave Cowan is the red team captain for nationals. And it actually got so bad that we were like, we don't even want to talk to these students. Like we want no part of this. And Dave, it was kind of interesting because Dave's like, wait, what? Because he didn't really put 2 and 2 together. And then we're like, oh, we're on team X. And he goes, oh, because he knew about this kind of as the event was going on. And he was like, oh, yeah, I'll take care of that. And so I have no idea what happened. And if they got admonished, I don't want to like, crucify the kids for being dumb. But it was just one of those things, like it really deflated. It sort of really deflated the whole competition for us, because it wasn't that fun anymore for Shields and I. Because it's just like, I mean, first of all, we were putting these kids in the dumpster. Like it was like, I mean, they were nationals, and the regular CCDC scoring engine has a negative SLA you can get. And so they were like negative 18,000. Like it was so negative, it was painful. And it was just like not fun for Shields and I, and we wanted no part of talking to them. So that's kind of 1A, is like, don't be an asshole. Keep it professional. Like you will get dumpstered. These are people who have decades or probably like hundreds of years of red team experience as a team, like collective. Not some sage ent sitting there with his, Darwin keyboard.
I'm 120 years old.
I'm 120. So that's a big piece of it. And
I think keeping calm is like, this is just to kind of, add in a little like flair here too. When you go to whatever job that you have, because a lot of these people, a lot of these kids and college kids are looking for a job, like it's not going to be, it could be intense. It's not going to be probably as intense as like a competition like that, but you're going to come into work some days and there's going to be so many fires and like 20 different things you have to do. Everyone's like freaking out. And you just have to go through priority, like just prioritize and go through each one at a time, stay calm. And if that's CCDC, right? That's ISTS.
Yeah.
You have 20 boxes that are on fire. Which one do you go to first? So like, it's a good way to kind of demonstrate what it means to prioritize and to stay calm. And like, sometimes you just gotta like take a break. Sometimes you just gotta get outside, take a quick walk, whatever it is you need to do just to kind of keep that calmness. Because at the end of the day, CCDC is a game. And that's a super bad look.
Yeah,
I imagine somebody just had a really weak moment. I hope they had a weak moment.
I mean,
they made a mistake.
I'm positive they did. It's one of those things. Like, I remember when I was 18. Like, thank God TikTok and everything was not around when I was like late high school, early college, because I would be the most unemployable human on this on this planet. So lucked out there. But yeah, to that point, so I've worked jobs where if you screw up, like people can get hurt in like pretty severe ways. Those jobs are very rare unless you're basically working directly in like some sort of defense or like space where, a launch pad could blow up or something. So, we'll sort of put those aside for the moment. To what you said, Zach, there's very few jobs where if you screw up or you don't, finish everything that day, no one's going to die. Like, okay, you may work for a company where something gets hacked and, ransomware, and that sucks, but like nobody's going to die probably, unless it's like a hospital or something. But like, put those aside for the moment. So
you gotta stop giving these,
I gotta give the worst examples.
Because you're like, well, that's
wait, except for all these things.
Yeah.
So that's the sort of the biggest piece of advice. The sort of second piece of advice there is like, yeah, just remember, it's a game. Nobody's gonna get hurt. Nobody's gonna die. Like, you just sort of take it all in stride. I know it's stressful. I've been on both sides of it. But I mean, that's the play. Is honestly a lot of, I think, what we look for in industry is like, how do you do under pressure? Because if you're a person who at the first sign of like anything being hard or pressure is to immediately like freak and just go off the rails, like that's going to be a tough sell. It's really really challenging to like work with that if you never know what you're gonna get. And I've worked with folks like that where it's like, I walk in one day and I'm like, I don't know if I'm getting the best you or the worst you or what in between. So that's kind of one. Two for me would be like, do the basics. Like, please, for the love of God, the basics. Change your passwords. And then remember that the only password on your system is not just your login password. Like, you have web apps, you have databases, you have other things. So like, change your passwords, look for things that are running on your system that seem weird. Don't just kill them right away. Figure out what they are and why they're running. Like, is this some JMX admin console that's running and every time I reboot it comes back? Like, figure out how to stop that. So a lot of the problem that blue teams have is they try to play whack-a-mole with the red team, which honestly just annoys us. And then we go and we work extra super hard to stay in there. But if you go in and figure out all the places we're persisting and clean us out as effectively as possible, and do that in one fell swoop, you're going to be the most, that is the most successful you're going to be, as opposed to trying to play whack-a-mole. And like, people are running WoW loops to just kill active SSH sessions. You're like, I have ways around that and you're just annoying me. And now I'm going to lock you out of the account because you're annoying me, or I'm going to like cat dev you random to your PTY. Also, as Kirk says, this boomer JMX. True.
Yeah. I remember when we did ISTS, and I don't know, you could probably do this in some aspect in CCDC now, even though things are mostly cloud. But like, I think our game plan was like, let's go in, we'll sit down, everyone look at each other, stand back up, go to our computer, unplug the Ethernet cable, everyone go to your console, and just
start locking it down.
And just start locking it down. Like, we'll forego the first hour of scoring, but then when we plug it back in, we know at least we have a good base image.
Sure. UVA, like defending national, like back-to-back national champions, UVA did not make it to CCDC regionals because they did exactly that. They shut down their services for too long, and qualifiers wasn't long enough to be able to handle being offline for that long, and then bringing everything back online. And I mean, it was close. I mean, with qualifiers, I think it was like 2016. It was like an obscene number of teams in one day. And because all of the teams wanted to go on the same day. So this side note here. So normally what they do is there's like 8 or 10 teams a day, and there's like 3 days of qualifiers. And it's a little unfair to the blue teams in that regard, because on day one, there's some folks who red team all 3 days. I usually do. And on day one, you're usually working out the bugs with your kit, and day 2 and 3, you're like on lock. And because the infrastructure doesn't really change between days 2 and 3, like it's a little unfair for the students on like the Friday, Saturday. So like one might be like Tuesday, Friday, Saturday, but the other teams had 4 or 5 extra days to prepare. And so you actually want to go first, because A, it was a weekday when less red teamers are available because we all got real jobs. And B, like there may have been bugs in the code and the scripts and everything else, but when everyone's had the opportunity to sign up, Saturday was always the most full, which was the last day of qualifiers.
There's I remember some spicy hot washes of people.
Yeah, people got upset and justifiably, emotional. I don't think the source of their anger was necessarily the most valid, but like they were understandably upset. So they went and they changed it, and they put everyone on one day, and it was just a fucking bloodbath.
It was,
because there was like 27 teams, and we're just like, it's like shells for days, and it is just a mess. But teams, one of their tactics was to if down interfaces and take that tactic, which is it's a tactic. Part of what Mubix was trying to do, and part of what they're trying to do overall, is to remove the ability to game the scoring engine. And so that's why Brandon and I, when we wrote the scoring engine, which is used at Mid-Atlantic, it actually does intelligent checks. The previous one used to just be like, is 25 up? Oh, SMTP must be working. Is 80 up? Yep. Oh, web must be working. And people would just do
all these little Python programs listening on all those ports.
That, or like the default Nginx config, when there used to be like a whole shopping cart. And so it's just like, so in order to remove the gamification, that's where the pendulum sort of swung. And unfortunately, and I'm like 85% sure that UVA didn't make it. So everything's anonymized for red team, so we don't necessarily know who's who. But I think I saw a tweet or something about that, which is unfortunate. Like it's a super bummer that that ended up biting them in the ass. But that's how it works sometimes. So I'm not sure what point that was, but I think that's the thing is be professional, be courteous, be humble. Like, it's okay to not know things. You're 20 years old. It's fine. Yeah. It's fine to not know things. In fact, if you say you know everything, I'm going to be real upset because I know you don't.
Are you just spreading rumors?
I am certainly just spreading rumors.
We here at SPARSA love drama.
Love the drams. And then, be humble, be open to learning. I mean, the whole point of this is to learn, and there are certainly red teamers who are assholes, and that happens, and usually they don't last long. But most of us want you to be better, because if you're better, it means whatever company you go to is better, which means that my data will hopefully leak out of one less place, because God knows there's enough of them. So seriously, approach to red teamers. Actually, I was chatting with one of the blue teamers from ISTS, he reached out to me on Discord and asked if we could take a half hour, an hour to chat. And I was just chatting through, I won't name names, so I don't, name and shame him, but he was like, I thought I was burning out of security, and doing ISTS actually really reinvigorated my love for security. And he realized one of the things he didn't want to do, which was the thing he was interning for last summer. And that's honestly one of the more important things, is figure out what you want to do and figure out what you don't want to do. Because like, I suck at AppSec and I don't have fun, and I don't have fun doing binary reversing. So like, I know I'm not going to do that. So if a job comes to me and says like, hey, we have a role in this, I'm going to say, keep looking, because I'm not interested. So I do encourage everyone, even if you're early in your career, even if you're late in your career, like, find someone to talk to. I think everyone on the SPARSA board, which you can find on sparsa.org. Damn it, I should have plugged that more. Everyone on the board, like myself and Zach.
Sell out Rusty here.
Yeah, myself and Zach and Kirk and everyone else, Ben and Brian and co, are all happy to have a conversation and sit down with you and walk you through any troubles or concerns, or just bounce ideas off of about, what the security industry looks like, and, whether or not, you're walking off a cliff doing something. So I seriously, I encourage everyone to do that. We are in the process of trying to build a better security community. I mean, that's the whole point of why we did this nonprofit. And that's what we're looking to do. So, please reach out. I think all of us are happy to sit down individually. If anyone wants to come hang out with us in, Discord during, just let us know. During a meeting, like if you want to join in on some of these roundtables, like please, like we'd love to have everyone join in. So that's kind of my soapbox. So I don't know if we want to chat about some of the upcoming events. I know we have a couple of the RITSec folks in the chat. I think there's a CTF soon. I don't know what other events are coming up. So,
I think there is CTF soon.
Yeah,
because I think it was on a weekend where it looked like I was pretty free and we could potentially have a team there.
I did another CTF recently. It was actually pretty fun. I'll plug John Hammond, who I've been watching. He does a lot of write-ups on CTFs, and that has been interesting to sort of scratch that itch of other CTF categories that I suck at, the binary exploitation and stuff. So cool. Yeah, it looks like we got a couple. There's the CTF, the RITSec graduation, the RIT open house, the RVAPT competition.
CTF second week of April. There you go.
CTF second week of April. Yeah, if you guys want to drop links in chat, like please do, and that way it'll be captured forever. / I can click them and maybe we'll throw them out in the newsletter or post them in.
Yeah, let's do it.
In Discord. So,
we have a meeting next month, and then
we are meeting.
Out.
Yeah, we are meeting, I believe, next month on
April 16th.
April 16th, same time. It'll be 6 p.m. Eastern, April 16th. And
Awesome.
we'll blast some more stuff out on the socials. I believe at some point there's going to be a newsletter. Someone is in charge of that, I'm sure.
Someone is.
Someone is. I won't name and shame.
This
cool.
year, like, with all the news of the vaccine coming out and stuff like that, like when we originally were building this, the most engagement we've gotten at SPARSA has been at security conferences. And of course, with COVID, all the security conferences are virtual. Not a lot of people go to them, stuff like that. So we're still coming up with a couple different ways we can engage everyone. But we're eyeing the first security conference when people feel like, the world's back to normal, stuff like that. We're definitely going to be holding a big event, get a lot of people there, get some good networking, some good talks and stuff like that. Just like before, this time we'll just have a little bit more backing, and we don't have to pay as much taxes, which is also kind of nice. And that's it. Like, I know a couple of the ideas that were floating around too, everything from scholarships, whether it's for school or if somebody wants to apply for funding to go to a conference or something like that, or we can help out with anywhere we can there. Like, those are all on the table.
Yeah.
Chat just a little bit more data.
Yeah. Chat just mentioned SparCon or SparsaCon.
SparCon?
We have been thinking about how, I don't know. We've been thinking about how we do that and what that would look like, which I think sounds super fun. So lots of upcoming events. I'll make sure to add things on the website and put links and put news. And I have to add an embedded player on there. So we've certainly got our work cut out for us here. But for anything else that anyone in the chat or watching the VODs or whatever, or the podcast are interested in us doing or helping, or ways we can jump in and assist, like Zach mentioned with scholarships and grants, or even just our time. I know all of us are swamped, especially lately, but you know, I think we're all willing to make some time, you know, given a little bit of notice there. The SPARSA Minecraft server. Cool. So with that, I don't have too much else. So please keep your ears and eyes peeled for upcoming stuff, and definitely do support RIT Seconds for the events they have coming up. It's been awesome to see that club mature from the disaster that we left into something that, like, apparently sponsors love to approach.
When you go into an organization or a place, like, leave it better than what you found it. I think we burned it down more than
I don't think we did that great. Cool. And with that, I don't have too much else. So I think my last closing piece will be, don't forget to follow, like, and subscribe on all of the socials, etc. I will plug that again and again. And then if there's anything that anyone feels they want to reach out to us about, feel free to hit us up on Discord, or you can hit feedback.sparsa.org, and that will take you to a form for any sort of feedback for us. So with that, we will sign off for the evening, but thank you everyone for tuning in.